Hello and welcome back to the What the Falk podcast. Today we'll be chatting to a former France, Tottenham Hotspur and Portsmouth defender about his memorable sole season at Sunderland AFC. Welcome to the show, Younes Kaboul. How are you, Younes? Are you well?
Hi, yes, good, thanks, and you?
Yeah, very, very well. Weird times to be a football fan at the moment, but a weird time to be a human, I think, isn't it? How are things at your part of the country at the moment?
Yeah, no, definitely right. At this time, right now, it's best for everyone to stay safe and stay healthy at home.
Yeah.
And like I said, football comes in a second or third plan right now.
By the way, I should ask maybe, because since you've left Watford, what has been happening in your career?
So I've decided to stop playing football at the professional level.
Yeah.
Now I'm taking some time off to see which direction I wanna take in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But it will probably be more based on doing my badges for later to be a coach probably.
Yeah.
So I'm learning on my side first before taking any action further.
Of course. So I'm going to take you all the way back. Officially, we're going to go back to 2015-16, but first, I'm going to take you all the way back to 2017. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe your Tottenham debut was actually at the Stadium of Light in probably one of the most memorable games ever, where Sunderland scored in the last minute.
Yep.
Would I be right in saying that was your debut for Tottenham?
It was, yeah.
I thought
so. It was my first Premier League game back in August 2007.
Yep.
And like I said before, I was amazed by the atmosphere, by the pace, by the intensity, by the environment of football in England.
Yeah.
And someone told me before the game that Sunderland was a special place to play because of the atmosphere and the noise in that stadium. And I was shocked. From the start of the game, and even more when they scored. I think it was the 92nd minute of the game. If I can't remember who scored, I think it was Chopra.
Yes, it was. Yep, Michael Chopra. Yep.
Yeah, Chopra. Yeah, and I collapsed after the game. I mean, I was gutted, obviously, but I was shocked by the atmosphere. Yeah.
Yeah, it was someday to be a Sunderland fan. I've always wondered what it must have been like to be a Tottenham player or fan that day, because that was one of my best memories. But I imagine it wasn't too great to be on the receiving end. But amazing atmosphere that day. But a year later, Sunderland made a bid for pretty much everyone that played for Tottenham, I think, at that point. Steve Malbronk, Pascal, Timu, all of the rest of them signed. You were the only one sort of not to sign. And around that sort of time, a quote came out, which I think most of us have heard. Can I just ask, did you feel like the media blew that comment out of proportion, or is there anything that you think was reported incorrectly with that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was some words said by someone, and it was out of context. And if those words came from my mouth, then I will take responsibility for it and I would face it.
Yeah.
But that didn't come from me, so whatever in a way. But at the time, I had the option to come to Sunderland. It didn't happen, and I moved on.
Did you ever get the opportunity to come up to Sunderland at that point? Did you have any discussions, or because I think you moved to Portsmouth at that point?
Yes, I did. I went to the training ground at the time to have a chat with Working.
Yep.
And we had a chat, and then I went back to Tottenham, and then I signed for Portsmouth at the time.
But thankfully for us, anyway, Fast forward to 2015, I think Sunderland and Dick Advocaat make a bid for you of around 3.5 million. The move, I remember it quite well actually. It kind of came out of nowhere as a fan. But how did the move to Sunderland come about? Did you have conversations sort of quite before that, or was it quite fast?
It was fast, yes. On that season, I was not in the plan of the manager anymore at Tottenham.
Yeah.
And I had some opportunities abroad, but I wanted to stay in the Premier League. And I had a couple of clubs here in the Premier League, and I've chosen the Sunderland one purely because every time that I played against Sunderland, especially at the Stadium of Light, I've always appreciated. I've always, I don't know, there's a vibe there that I always like to play at Sunderland.
Yeah.
Which for most of the clubs and players, they don't really enjoy playing there because of many reasons, the weather, the pressure in the stadium, and it was kind of like a fortress in that stadium. And I wanted to take this challenge, and I did.
When the move came about, it would have been, I imagine, I think it was Lee Congerton was there at the time alongside
it was, yes,
Advocaat. So did they sort of just contact Tottenham, a bid was accepted and you came straight down? Who did you meet first? Was it Lee Congerton or Dick Advocaat?
Yeah, no, it was Lee, because at the time the team was in America for pre-season.
Yeah.
And so I went up in Sunderland at the training ground meeting Lee Congerton to sign my contract. And then a few days later, I've joined the team it was in Canada at the time.
Toronto, I think.
Pre-season.
We had that wonderfully strange green kit that actually became very lucky as the season went later on. I remember quite well. Did you ever worry that because of that quote that we mentioned earlier that the fans wouldn't take you originally, or you had more to prove, or was that something that never passed on your mind?
No, not at all. Not at all. No. I'm someone who look at the present and the future.
Yeah.
I don't really look back. Not at all. I knew at the time that as soon as I sign, things like that will come back.
Of course.
But as I said, whatever, things like that didn't come from my mouth. I never thought about something like it. And sometimes you're around people you cannot really control what they're saying.
Of course.
And this is what happened.
I think as well with Sunderland, I think even if say something was said, we've had many players that have came from Newcastle and said some things about Sunderland that are really not complimentary, and they've admitted that it's been said from themselves when they were younger or so. And I think if you play well and you put effort on the pitch, which you did,
exactly,
very forgiving. Football is football,
exactly.
Right?
Exactly. You are judged on the pitch. Whatever happened outside, if something comes from yourself, you take responsibility and you face it and you move on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in that case, I was a bit like whatever, and we move on.
Yeah, of course. Now the season itself, before it started, I was actually at your debut against Leicester, but it was a typical Sunderland season around that time. We'd ended the season really well, signed a lot of good players. German, Oliver Toivonen came in at that point as well. I think Adam Matthews was also in, and it seemed to be a really good, nice, positive vibe around the club. So before the season started, what were the aims of Dick Advocaat and the team?
To be safe, to stay in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Because of the season, the previous season, Sunderland escaped it not far to be relegated. So the lesson was learned, and then the next season we started badly.
Yeah.
For many different reasons. Sometimes things don't click.
Yeah.
Dick at the time, he done a brilliant job, the previous season. He done his best for the next one, and it didn't work out. At this time, we us as players, we taking responsibility, obviously.
Yeah.
And a change was needed. But if I have to talk about myself at the beginning of the season, because I was terrible, because I didn't have a real pre-season, because basically I was training by myself at Tottenham at the time. I was not training with the team.
Yeah.
So when I've joined Sunderland, they was about 3 weeks ahead of me in terms of training.
Yeah.
Which is a lot.
Yeah.
Which, 3 weeks is almost the full pre-season, and I wasn't ready. But at the same time, I wanted to play. You know, when because I'm a competitor. So you want to compete, and physically you're not really ready. But eventually, during the season, things change.
I remember a particular game, and it was actually before Dick had sort of left, and I think it was Bournemouth away, where you were sent off, and I remember that being sort of a game where almost things changed an awful lot for you personally. I felt like after you came back from that, I think it was a 1-game suspension, although the team didn't immediately do better, you seemed to settle after that, like almost with that red card happening. Did it give you like a week to kind of like get the fitness back up, to settle and think, right, this is going to be my season? Because it ended up being that way.
I think as an athlete, as a professional athlete, you always have bad time when you touch the ground, and you basically you rock bottom. And at this stage, you can always get better. And that was the case for me against Bournemouth on that day. I had a terrible game. I got a red card. I was guilty for the first goal. And I simply faced myself after the game. Straight after the game, when I went back home, I faced myself, saying that I cannot carry on like that. I cannot carry on playing like that. You know, I was training well, I was eating well, I was sleeping well, everything, but I was not playing well. So I had to find the answers, and I just went back to basics, basically, by just concentrating on defending and being maybe more ugly, you know, on the pitch, and not trying to be pretty, should I say. So I had one game ban, and then I came back stronger and stronger.
Yeah, I would agree, absolutely. The start of the season as a whole, like many seasons with Sunderland, before and of course after, didn't start the way I think the team wanted it to at all. And I think really quickly it became apparent that maybe Dick Advocaat coming back was maybe not the right option for him individually and also for the club. But is it true that before the West Ham game, I think Dick Advocaat came in and said that he was due to leave? Because I remember him crying in the dugout after the second goal went in. Did he address that beforehand, or was nothing said?
I can't really remember, to be honest. But we could feel the vibe, you know.
Yeah.
Before that game, we could feel that he will either walk out or being sacked. But I think we should all respect Dick for what he's done for the club, especially for the season before.
Absolutely, and he's still a very well liked person at Sunderland as well.
Yeah. Because he brought some light again to this football club, and sometimes, you know, like I said before, sometimes he works well, and sometimes it doesn't work. And in this game, when it doesn't work, you need a change. So you change manager, and it's easier to change one manager than probably 11 players or 15 players.
course. It's not possible these days. How did you find it, sort of Dick Advocaat as a man as opposed to a manager? Because he seemed to be a really well-liked person by his players.
Yes. It was a brilliant guy, but with a big knowledge of sports, of football, and he's got a lot of experience in the game. But yeah, I've got a lot of respect for him, and because also he's the one who brought me to Sunderland also.
Of course. So, as we touched on before, I think your form, personally, and the team's form grew massively come the end of the season. But just before we go into like the fantastic part and some of my best memories as a Sunderland fan, Sam Allardyce came in. So Sam Allardyce is obviously a big personality. If you've played in England for as long as you had at that point, everyone knows Big Sam. What were your first impressions of him, and how did he introduce himself sort of to the group and you individually?
So when Sam came in, it was exactly this type of person, character, charismatic person that should be with us at this time.
Yeah.
And us as players, we were delighted to get Sam as a manager, and straight away. It's really hard, to restructure a football team.
Mm-hmm.
It's so difficult because you're dealing with so many characters, so many egos, so many different players. So in life in general, in any business, it's so hard to deal with people because everyone's different. But he managed to do that within, I don't know, probably a week, 10 days.
Yeah.
Straight away from day one. He passed us a message that basically you take it or you stay home or you leave.
Yeah.
Basically. And he had straight, and also the next day he started to have one-on-one meetings with all the players. So that was with the players and then the people from the club also.
Yeah.
To try and understand each individuals, which that was the first time for me, to be honest, that I've experienced that, and it helped, and from day one he changed everything. He was starting to change everything.
I spoke
in a good way.
Mike Clegg, who obviously I think you would have worked with at the time.
Yes.
And he said he had a fantastic way of making people feel valued, even the small members of staff. Is that what makes him such a good manager? Because I think a lot of people see him as long ball or basic football, but he takes in a lot of sports science and things like that, doesn't he?
Exactly. So he came in with a kind of like a psychologist for athletes, for sports, and that helped. At the beginning, we thought that's a bit too much, but no, not at all, because he was able to basically read in our minds and to get the best out of any individuals in the dressing room. So we've done some tests on the computers to try and learn each player, his character, how can he face the situation we are in right now, and how can I get the best out of each player to get out of that situation, and he's been able to do that.
How good was he for fitness? Because I spoke to Jan Kirchhoff, who obviously was a fantastic player at Sunderland, but had really well documented sort of injury issues. You said yourself when you came in, obviously you were 3 weeks behind, and I think some injuries affected you sort of at the beginning of the season, but with Allardyce, it seemed like everyone stayed fit. I mean, Jan now seemingly can't stay fit wherever he goes, which is such a shame, but when he was at Sunderland he could get to about 70 minutes fine. What was it about Allardyce and his fitness that kept everyone so in tune?
Yeah, one thing I forgot to say about Sam is from day one he said that none of you are fit to play in the Premier League.
Yeah.
From the stats that I've been going through, each one of you are not fit to play in the Premier League. So he changed the way we trained. He changed many things, like even the food. So we were well drilled, and he basically put pressure. He put pressure on us. He put pressure on us for us to wake up, and it worked. It worked.
I think I watched an interview with Patrick Van Aanholt, which was quite funny. He said when it came to tactics and things like that, sometimes he would do things that would make you say, I don't think that's going to work, and I'm not sure about this, and I'm not certain, but then you would do it, and it would work exactly as he said it was. Does that give you confidence?
Yeah, massively, because like you said before, Big Sam, he's got that ability to get the best out of a player. He's done it at Bolton, he's done it at West Ham, he's done it at many clubs, and honestly, what I will never forget, because there's not many managers who can do that to players. There's not, maybe it's not the best way to coach, but I think it's the best way to manage players, and he's got that. And there's not many managers in the country who can do that, or should I say, they can do it the old days.
Yeah,
you've got him and Harry Redknapp, who are able to manage players properly.
When we talk about people that you've played under, there's a lot of good managers there, and you've mentioned one is in Harry Redknapp, but how highly would you rate Sam Allardyce on that list of managers you've played under?
Well, from what I've experienced with him, he's up there. Honestly, he's up there, because what he done to us is amazing. Is amazing. So basically, he managed to give us confidence back, and to set up a plan to stay in the Premier League, and it worked. And you are judged on the results. So when he came in, from the bookmakers everywhere, from anywhere in the country, we were down already.
Yeah,
I think he came in by October.
Yeah, it was October.
October. Yeah, and everyone was saying, Sunderland are down, and us as players, we never believed. We never listened to whatever was saying outside the club. We were just focusing on ourselves.
I think.
And
sorry, go ahead.
Yes, and we knew that we could stay in the Premier League, and we did.
His first win, I remember very, very well. I'm sure you do as well. And it's probably, if everyone's completely honest with each other, the best memory of Younes Kaboul at Sunderland is not your defending, it's this cross against Newcastle. And I'm sure you've watched it back. It was a brilliant cross, and I'll never get my head around how you got that cross in and why you were even there. But what are your memories of that derby game, and in particular that third goal?
Back in way before that game, it was a pre-season time. I was chatting with Lee Kaboul.
Yeah,
and he said to me, the derby between Newcastle and Sunderland is nothing to do with Arsenal and Spurs. And I said, "Are you sure?" He said, "Yeah, definitely. Your London derby is Mickey Mouse compared to the North East derby."
Yeah.
I said, "Okay, maybe you're right, but I don't know. I've never experienced that derby, but we'll see." And he was right.
We know that he's right. We always knew that he would be right. Lee's never wrong.
Yeah, he was right. On that day, going to the stadium, I thought it was the last game in the world.
Yeah.
Simple as that. I thought it was the last game in the world, and basically you cannot go wrong with that game. You cannot lose that game.
We very rarely did.
As simple as that. Yeah, but you cannot
No.
lose. I mean, on that day we couldn't lose. We couldn't lose. Simple as that, because the confidence was so high. The vibe. I mean, the fans. I mean, I don't even talk about the fans because that was ridiculous. Honestly, I thought the stadium would just like fall apart. and from the first minute we were on the front foot, and we've been like that the whole game. The whole game, from the first minute to the last one. And honestly, it's it's when you experience games like that you understand why you've chosen to do that job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That cross, could you ever have imagined being in that position at that point? Because let's be honest, and I know we remember that like as an individual part, but there was many times when you just ran along the left wing and suddenly turned into a winger. But that's the memory that sort of sticks out. Did you kind of see that happening as you started the run? Because I think you ran about 60 yards.
Yeah. So basically, I'm a defender, but I'm not a natural defender. I've always enjoyed to be part of the game.
Yeah.
In matches and even in training. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like anything, but I felt that when I remember I've anticipated a pass at the back, and then I passed it on to Jan and Villa, and there was a massive gap on the left hand side.
Yeah.
It was like basically a motorway, and I've just gambled. I've sprinted, and I was shouting to Jan to play me. And I think at the beginning he didn't want to, but the way I've shouted to him, he had no choice to pass me the ball, and he gave me a very good pass. And then I saw Fletch at the back post making a good run, and I just had to adjust it the best way as I could at the time. Even if that's not my specialty to deliver passes like that, but on that day it worked, and he finished it brilliantly.
You must have watched it back. You must have watched it back before.
I did. After the game, I did. After the game, I did, and listen, it's like anything in life. When you do something, when you feel something that is, it's all up in the mind. I wanted to pass it, to Fletch for him to score, and it worked. It worked, but I'm disappointed that Fletch didn't come to see me after after he scored.
Straight in the corner.
But yeah, it was a brilliant finish from him.
The second half of the season, I think, for me, and I think a lot of fans maybe feel the same way, was all about the 4Ks, sort of Kaboul, Kone, Kazri, Kirchhoff. And one of the big reasons we went on such a good run, because it was different to the other times we stayed up, we went on a really good run. It wasn't like we had to win. Yes, we won a couple of games towards the end, but we only lost 3 in about 15. And a big part of that was the signing of those players mentioned just there, but also Lamine Kone alongside yourself. Yeah. And Lamine stayed with us a little while afterwards. And I think a lot of fans feel like when we lost yourself, we lost that partnership. So what was it about your partnership with Lamine that made it so good?
I think it's the understanding between each other. When Lamine, Wabi and Jan signing in January, obviously I knew Lamine and Wabi from the French league, so yeah. I've watched them in the past, and I knew that they were brilliant players, but I didn't know Jan, and as soon as I saw him, in training, and straight away I saw a very, very clever guy.
Yeah.
In his game, and as soon as them three came in, for the first week, I said, okay, we safe. That's fine. Now we safe. I know that we safe because they're brilliant players, they're clever players, and they did well. They did brilliantly well, and all of us in the dressing room, the chemistry, the commitment, the understanding between us was amazing. And Shazy at the time decided that once a week we were going for lunch from I think it was from December or January to the end of the season, and that was a brilliant idea. But that's an idea came from an experienced player, an experienced man. Him, Wes at the time, they were brilliant in the dressing room because of what they've experienced in the past at Man United, and they've been in the Premier League for years and years. So it was great, and the value of the dressing room, each individual was amazing. It was amazing.
A lot of leaders at the time as well. Obviously, you talked John O'Shea and also Wes Brown, a lot of experience. Lee Cattermole, obviously I know wasn't the captain at that time, but Lee Cattermole. You came in as captain from Spurs. How important is having a manager that's such a leader, but also 5 to 6 individuals that can lead on and off the pitch?
It's as much as important to have a manager.
Yeah.
The manager cannot be on the pitch on the weekend. He's on the sidelines. So, to have leaders, captains, there's no price for that. I mean, we had 4 or 5 players in the team that, with a big experience in the Premier League, and your job at this time. It's to pass on your experience to the others, to the new players, to the youngest, to the players who comes from a different league, and that's what we've done at the time.
With that end of the season, like we said before, there was only 3 defeats in 15, so we'd been in really good form for some time, but outside of maybe the Derby win, if you cast your mind back to that period, the real lift-off came in 2 particular games of the season, which, if I'm honest with you, since then it's never been as good. But first and foremost, I think we'll kind of discuss the Chelsea game. A strange game because I think we go in at half-time 2-1 down, and I remember as a fan being feeling like we were maybe going to lose that game at half-time, and I think Newcastle were playing Aston Villa that day, who were bottom of the league, but second half was just something different. What was said in the dressing room to turn that game around? How did you address that you were losing 2-1 against a team, one of the best teams in the league, and say we're going to win this? What was said?
I think obviously the Chelsea game was a big success for us at the time, but I think it's not. I mean, for me, it's not the Chelsea game. It's the Norwich game away.
Yes.
We played Norwich away, and we knew that we were playing our direct, basically a direct team who could, potentially go down.
Yeah.
But Norwich on that day didn't thought that. Norwich on that day was playing a normal Premier League game against a normal team, and we won that game. And I think the turning point was the Norwich game. And to go back to the Chelsea against Chelsea, like you said, we were 2-1 down at halftime, and we just said that in the dressing room that we cannot lose that game because the way we were playing, we couldn't lose, and we went back in the second half, and Diego Costa had the chance to make it 3.
Yeah.
And Vito made a brilliant save. Honestly, until that day, I saw that goal. I was gutted because I say now that's 3, but Vito made a brilliant save, and that kept us in the game. And we passed on the second gear, and we managed to win that game 3-2. And by the way, Wabi scored a cracker on that day.
Some goal. That was at my end, that and the minute it left his boot. But it was quite funny. I think it was Kone was standing in his way, and I think Kone had to dive out of the way to make sure it connected and went in the top corner.
I think he shouted before he smashed the ball.
Yeah.
To move out the way, and how he made the ball. There's no chance. There was no chance for the keeper. There was no chance for the keeper. And we were. Overall in that game, we were more hungry than Chelsea.
Yeah.
Basically, and I was happy because I was feeling. Basically, I was. How can I say that? I was feeling what Chelsea felt.
Yeah.
Basically, I'm saying that because when I was at Tottenham, for example, when we used to play at Sunderland, we knew what we will face. We will face a fortress, and I could feel that the teams coming to the Stadium of Light, feeling that again, and I was happy. I was happy because I knew that now teams that comes to play us, is not the team that is not the same as 6 months before.
Yeah.
Now you come in here, it's a different story, and that's the reason why also we stayed up.
I think a big game that actually cemented that, talking about games that sort of changed things, and I touched on the Chelsea game, but going even further back than the Norwich game, the game against Manchester City, we lost 1-0.
Yes.
It depends, because Lamine Kone's challenge on Yaya Toure is maybe worth a goal. But that was a game that had all the new signings in. Pretty much the team that ended up staying up was that team that played that night, give or take 1 or 2 players. Yeah. And we deserved something out of that game, and it felt like for the first time in a few months we had a team and we put in a performance where we took on probably the best side in the league at that point, and it felt like no one got an easy ride after that at all.
The game against City, you're right. It was. Even if we lost that game, but we showed, what was about us. That we fought, and we never gave up. And I remember after the game that on TV and the talks where Man City were very lucky to win that game.
Yeah, they were.
And they had a brilliant team also, obviously, but I was really proud with that performance. Yeah.
So going into the Everton game, which is the one that I suppose almost everyone remembers because it relegated Newcastle, it kept Sunderland up, and it was just it was the kind of game where 9 times out of 10 Sunderland would maybe draw that game or lose that game, but the minute we went into that game, because of the performance and because of the team that we had, everyone felt confident and we just demolished a really good team. What was the feeling in the dressing room? Did you feel much like the fans that we were going to win that one? Did you just know it was coming?
It was a long day. First of all, it was a Wednesday, so it was a long day because the game was a night game. Yeah. And you need to know before that because we played Chelsea on the Saturday, I think. Yeah, it was a Saturday. Yeah. Yeah, and basically, maybe I think from Saturday night until Wednesday, I had probably maybe 15 hours sleeping.
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't sleep anymore. I was. I wanted, I wanted everything to be finished, but finish in the way I wanted. So to stay up. Basically, it was a dream, like coming true, and that's what happened. And the Everton game, we had a plan, and we started the game strong. Everton were kind of like light, and we killed them. Simple as that. We killed them. The vibe again that night was amazing. The fans, everyone was behind us, and we made one from October, November. We made one. So the fans, the team, the staff, all the people working for Sunderland, basically the town. It was the town against the Premier League. Any Premier League team, and that's what happened that season. So it was not just a football club against all the Premier League clubs. It was a town, and that made the difference.
Yeah.
And that night against Everton, it was. I don't know what can I say. It was like I don't know. There's no words to describe it. Honestly, I cried after the game because of all the basically it was all the pressure from the season. Everything came down in one game, and we knew that was it. We were safe.
The fact that you did cry after the game, and there was a few people, Jermaine Defoe, Dick Advocaat, the season beforehand. There's a famous quote which you may or may not have heard, which is obviously from Niall Quinn, who's obviously a Sunderland legend, and he said about Sunderland just getting under your skin no matter which teams you play for. What is it about Sunderland that does just get under your skin as a player?
It's weird because I think it's more than football. Yeah. It's the people. It's the people, human being. I never experienced that before. The people from the northeast they're just special. They're just special. They are people with big values. But I think that comes from the background, from education. I think growing up, you don't grow up the same way as anywhere. Like say London or the South.
Yeah.
The northern people are different in many ways, but positively, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think they're stronger. They've got bigger values, and they appreciate more things. They are by themselves, and they're simple, and basically they were like everything I am. So. Neil Quinn is right by saying that Sunderland gets into your skin, and that's exactly what happened. I know that I will live with souvenirs that I will never experience again. I know that, and but in a way it's good because I've experienced something. Like totally unique, and I will never forget this. Never.
Talking about how positive it all was at that point, and like I said, I don't think it's ever been as good since, and we're talking almost 5 years ago now, which is a long time in football.
Yes.
I was at the game against Manchester City, the next game, the season after that, obviously when Big Sam left and Moyes took over, and as much as the season was a mess, for want of a better word. The first game of the season, we actually looked defensively as solid as we ever did with yourself and Lamine sort of in the centre. And I spoke to Vito around a year ago, surrounding sort of your departure, because I think it left a lot of fans really unhappy with your departure, and football is football, and people say certain things, and there was 1,000,001 rumours going round about why you had left at that point. When I spoke to Vito, he indicated that very much was you weren't looking to leave at all. But what's your version of events? What are your memory of the time when Watford made a bid and why you did eventually leave?
Basically, I mean, my family at the time. I mean, for myself, it was different because I had the social life, every day with the lads and in the dressing room. So it wasn't a problem. But for my family, it was difficult.
Yeah,
it was difficult, and but they never came to me and said that we're not feeling really well, but I had to notice it myself.
Yeah.
And I had to take a decision. So we were in pre-season in Austria.
Yeah.
And my agent, basically the club, Watford, said that they want you.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to him, take it, because we want to go back. We would like to go back home.
Yeah.
For the family. Yeah. So, but I don't really like to speak too much about this because I had no reason. I had no reason really to leave.
Yeah.
After the season we've experienced before, and we stayed safe, and we had a strong team. So I was gutted. I was kind of like depressed to leave this football club. But I knew at the time that I was not just leaving a football club. I was leaving a town. I was leaving some people.
Yeah.
I was leaving, so that was really, really, really difficult at the time. Really difficult, and obviously we had some friends also in Durham.
Yeah.
That we were really close with also, and that was difficult. So yeah, and then I've made a transfer request to the club.
Yeah.
And at the beginning they said no.
Yeah.
But I've said to them, look, that's nothing to do with football. That's family reasons,
Yeah, family's family. I think most people can understand that.
Yeah. So then eventually they've accepted.
So the club did try to keep you at one point.
Yes. Yeah, they did, and I respect that. I mean, they've understood the situation at the time, and then at the end they said, okay, you can go.
You didn't get a great deal of time with him, literally weeks, because he came in quite late in pre-season, and obviously you left after the first game. But what were your initial impressions of David Moyes? Because I know it didn't work out with Sunderland, but in that time frame, could you have imagined that it would have went off badly from your experience?
Sam should have stayed.
Yeah.
To be honest, Big Sam should have stayed, and the club would have been more stable.
Yeah.
Because if you're looking at the previous season, so we stayed up, but we didn't lose a game for quite a while, and we were on the run. So for us as players, we wanted to carry on. So obviously we had the break, we had the summer break, but we wanted to carry on the same way we finished. So that was the plan.
I think we could have done really well. the next season. I think if he'd stayed,
Yeah, of course.
it would have been not even close to. Maybe I'm wearing red and white glasses, but I think we could have pushed the top 10
easily, and but we will never know, obviously. But that was the plan. The plan was to carry on in the same way as we finished the previous season, and starting from the day one of pre-season, and so we started like that. Obviously, Big Sam. I think we've done 1 or 2 friendly games with him, and we were playing well, and then he left, which is normal for him. I mean, it's a dream job coming in for him to get the England national team, which is normal. But I know for fact, that if Sam would have stayed, then it would have been a different story.
Yeah, Vito said the same. Yeah.
And today the club wouldn't be to where they are now. But that's life. What can you do? Today it's just a matter of getting the club stable again before thinking too much. It's to get a strong base and to build up from there.
One day it'll all be okay.
Yeah. It's not easy. It's not easy.
So I suppose my final question's a nice easy one, I think. But if you had to pick your five-a-side team from players that you played alongside at Sunderland, who would be your five-a-side team?
Lamine, Kone, Defoe, Kazri, Lee, and Jan.
Perfect. You playing Rushy goalkeeper? Who goes in goal first?
No, we don't need.
I'd agree.
just to go back on the goalkeeper situation at the time, because we had 2 brilliant keepers. We had Vito and Pix.
Yeah.
Obviously, at the time, Pix was coming through the team slowly, and he was amazing at training. He was amazing. And sometimes I used to say to him, I said, "You crazy?" Because sometimes at training we used to play a game, and the ball goes out, and straight away he wants to rush and do a goal kick or to try and make a decisive pass, an assist. And before I was going to say anything to him, and by the time I was going to say something, he made an assist. So I was like, how do you do? And that was his strength. And Vito saved us on many occasions. And to stay up, you need a good goalkeeper.
Absolutely,
you need a good goalkeeper when you're not in a good situation. You need a good goalkeeper. The same if you want to be champion, you need a top goalkeeper, and we had that.
We had two. That. Wonderfully. Younes, that was really lovely to chat to you, and I hope you enjoyed obviously chatting about your time at Sunderland. But
yes,
thank you so much.
Yes, listen, all the pleasure is for me. If I have a message to send to Sunderland, it's I will never forget ever this town, the people, the football club, because whatever I've experienced that season. Basically, I spent a year there, but I felt that I've spent 10 years because it was a roller coaster season, and you need that sometimes, in your life. At least it was not a boring season. It was a season with full of emotion, and thankfully everything ended well. And today I only wish that the club will go back to where it belongs, which is the Premier League.
One day.
And I hope so, because the town need it, the people need it, and Sunderland, you can go anywhere in the world. Sunderland is known, is well known in any football country, and to see Sunderland today in League One, it's a bit wrong. But we know why. We know why, because of everything happened. But one day, in football, one day you here, the next day you there. So I'm not worried about that. I know that they will go back in the Prem.
Younes, thank you very much.
Pleasure, Glenn.
Absolute pleasure. You enjoy whatever your next steps are. Please keep in touch. Let us know what you're doing.
Yes.
And hopefully we'll get back to actually playing football and talking about football in the coming months.